The fires were lit before dawn, not torches. Braziers the size of altars, burning cedar and myrrh, filling the air with something that clung to the skin and the hair and stayed there for days. The columns rose so high above the courtyard that the tops of them disappeared into the smoke. Between them, curtains of white and violet and blue, linen, not cloth, hung from silver rings on marble rods, moving in the mountain air like something alive. The tables had been set for 6 months, not 6 days, not 6 weeks, 6 months. 180 days of feasting in the citadel of Susa in the court of the King of Kings. Outside those walls, an empire stretched from the Aegean Sea to the borders of India. 127 provinces, peoples from every corner of the known world, the largest empire the world had yet produced. And the man who ruled it had called every satrap, every general, every noble, every official of consequence, and told them to come and eat. His name was Xerxes, son of Darius, king of Persia, Media, Babylon, and the lands beyond. And what he built inside those walls was not simply a feast. It was a statement, a demonstration, a performance of power so deliberate and so total that the ancient world had no word for what it was. This is what happened inside. History like this does not survive by accident. It survives because it was too extraordinary to be forgotten. If this is the kind of world you want to be pulled into, subscribe to Truly Historical. Susa was where the court lived, where the king received, where the machinery of empire was administered and displayed. The palace Xerxes inherited from his father Darius was already one of the largest structures on earth. Xerxes expanded it. The great audience hall, the Apadana, was supported by 36 columns, each one 20 meters high, each topped with a double-headed bull carved from a single block of stone. The walls were faced with glazed brick, painted in deep blue and gold, showing the king's immortal guard in endless procession. Spear in hand, robed to the ground, row after row after row. The garden was enclosed by walls and filled with trees brought from every corner of the empire. Cedars from Lebanon, palms from Babylon, fruit trees from the Aegean coast. Water ran through channels cut into the stone, feeding pools where fish moved in the dark. The Persians called it pairidaēza. The word, centuries later, became paradise. This was the stage, and the performance was about to begin. The Book of Esther, one of the few surviving accounts that describes the feast in any detail, records that Xerxes held a banquet for all his officials and servants, the army of Persia and Media, the nobles and governors of the provinces. For 180 days, he displayed the riches of his royal glory and the splendor and pomp of his greatness. 180 days. The number is not an exaggeration for effect. It reflects something deliberate and calculated. This was not a celebration, it was a review. A 6-month assembly of every man who held power in the empire, gathered in one place, fed at the king's table, shown what the king possessed, reminded of what the king was. The satraps came from Sardis and Babylon and Egypt and Bactria, generals who had fought on the edges of the known world, administrators who had never seen the king in person. They came and they sat and they ate and they watched, and what they watched was the point. The logistics of feeding a court of this size for 6 months were themselves a demonstration of power. Persian royal records, the Persepolis Fortification Tablets, clay documents recovered from the treasury, detail the rations issued to workers, officials, and members of the royal household. Wine by the liter, grain by the ton, livestock counted in the thousands. Meat came from every province. Cattle, sheep, gazelle, and game birds. Fish arrived packed in ice brought down from the mountains. Wine, Persian, Babylonian, Greek, flowed from vessels of gold and silver, each one different, the ancient sources note, because the king did not repeat himself. But the guests did not all eat the same food. Rank determined what arrived at your table. A satrap ate differently from a general. A general ate differently from a provincial official. The feast was a map of the empire's hierarchy, rendered in food and served 3 times a day for 6 months. To be invited was an honor. To be seated close to the king was a statement about your standing. To be moved further away, or not invited at all, was a message that required no words. The feasts were not silent. Musicians played throughout. Persian court music, strings, wind instruments, percussion, was a formal art, performed by trained musicians who were part of the royal household. Dancers performed, storytellers recited, entertainers of every kind were brought to the court from across the empire. But the entertainment was not only spectacle, it was also politics. The feast was the moment when the king was visible, when petitions could be made, when alliances were confirmed or quietly ended, when a man who had served well might find himself rewarded in front of every powerful person in the empire, and when a man who had failed might find himself conspicuously absent from the table he had previously occupied. Herodotus records that Xerxes held councils during the feasting period, that the decision to invade Greece was debated and decided in this very context, with his generals and advisors gathered around him, full of the king's wine, in the shadow of the king's columns. The feast was the forum. The banquet hall was the war room. What looked like excess was, in fact, administration. After the 180 days, the ancient sources record a second feast, smaller, 7 days, held in the garden of the palace, open to every man in the citadel of Susa, from the greatest official to the least servant. The couches were gold and silver, set on a mosaic floor of porphyry and marble and mother of pearl. The wine was served in golden vessels, and the rule, the sources note carefully, was that there was no compulsion. Each man drank as much as he wished. The king's stewards had been instructed, no one was to be pressured. The cup was filled when the guest asked for it to be filled. This detail is not incidental. In a court where every gesture carried meaning, the freedom to drink at one's own pace was itself a gift, a demonstration of the king's generosity, a reminder that the abundance around them existed because of him, and that he chose to share it. The queen held her own feast separately for the women of the court. 2 celebrations running in parallel, each governed by its own rules. Xerxes was preparing for the largest military campaign in Persian history. The invasion of Greece, the campaign that would cross the Hellespont on a bridge of boats, that would burn Athens, that would end at Salamis, was being assembled during these years. The feast at Susa was not separate from that preparation. It was part of it. An empire that size did not hold together through force alone. It held together through loyalty, and loyalty was built through presence, through being seen, through eating at the king's table, and returning home with the memory of what you had witnessed. The columns, the curtains, the gold vessels, the food that came from every corner of the world, and understanding in your body, rather than just your mind, what it meant to serve the King of Kings. The men who left Susa after those 180 days went back to their provinces carrying something with them. Not just gifts, though there were gifts. Not just instructions, though there were instructions. They carried the image of what they had seen, and that image was the point. The palace at Susa was destroyed by fire, rebuilt, and eventually abandoned. Alexander the Great passed through in 330 BCE, took the treasury, and moved on. The columns fell. The glazed brick walls crumbled into the earth. The garden dried out and the channels silted over. What survived were the tablets, the records, the lists of rations, and the names of the men who received them. Bureaucracy outlasted the feast. And one question the record does not answer. What did the men who sat at those tables actually think in the quiet of the night, when the music had stopped and the wine was finished and the king had withdrawn behind his curtained doors? Whether they felt awe or fear or something that had no name, the tablets do not say. What do you think those men carried home with them? Loyalty or something closer to dread? The ancient world was full of rooms like that one. Rooms where power was performed so completely that the people inside them could not tell the difference between a gift and a warning. Subscribe to Truly Historical. There are more of those rooms waiting.